Hi everybody, welcome to AI TV. We're broadcasting live from AI Expo Africa 2020 online, the online edition because of COVID. We're here in a virtual world now. We've taken AI TV online and we're doing all our interviews from the media center using Zoom. So it gives me great pleasure to welcome Ronnie and Abrie from Oracle. They were both sponsors and speakers at the show. One of many vendors that supported us this year, and it's just great, Ronnie and Abrie, to welcome you to AI TV and to thank you for your support this year. So, how are you doing?
Yeah, doing fine. Thank you very much.
Excellent, Ronnie. You were obviously giving a talk at the show, and you really centered around the world of work and HR. You know what's going on. Obviously in terms of Oracle's products and services in that domain. But right now we're seeing, very interestingly, the impact of COVID on the world of work. So, what are the big challenges now that we're all getting to grips with, and how is technology helping us with this massive change that we've all gone through this year?
So it's actually interesting, and we looked at this from an Oracle perspective at the stage where the fourth industrial revolution was coming about, and people were starting to think about, do we do this digital transformation? How do we start? Where do we start? When do we start? And what we actually found was that although there were certain organizations that had started this transformation process and moving into the world of cloud, and as a result of that, taking advantage of some of the artificial intelligence that comes alongside that, things like your machine learning, your chatbot capability, being able to work remotely. And I think what we found was, although you were starting to see this trend happening as a result of the fourth industrial revolution, what really happened at the beginning of this year was that the complete unexpected COVID arrived, and all of a sudden people were forced into a lockdown environment. And those organizations that hadn't started this transformation into the world of AI were the ones that really, really struggled. And I think from an Oracle perspective, we were one of the more fortunate organizations in that our transition was absolutely seamless. We moved from going into the office on the Thursday to working from home on Friday, and there was no interruption whatsoever. We had our laptops, we had our connectivity to our cloud solutions. We just carried on work as if nothing had actually happened. And I think, organizations that were in that sort of transformation phase where they'd already migrated into the cloud were the ones that are really coming to the fore now. Obviously there are other areas that are, or circumstances that are impacting, but at least from a continuation perspective, from a work perspective, we've been able to carry on quite successfully.
Now, Ronnie, I put together the speaking program, and I think we had 82 speakers at the event, and I'm just trying to quite remember the title of your talk. Can you just remind our viewers what you spoke about?
Yeah, so the title of my talk was Robocop, Meet Your New HR Director, Robocop.
That was it. I knew there was a robo thing and a HR thing. I just wanted to make sure I knew what the title was. Yeah, so robo,
So the
HR,
concept behind that.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about that, because the world of robo, robo advisors, cobots, chatbots, HR, and people. That's the melting pot right now. Tell us a little bit about the essence of what you talked about.
Absolutely. So conceptually, when we started looking at what we were going to present and how we were going to present it from an HR perspective, there was, I think, initially when we started this whole fourth industrial revolution, there was a lot of fear, as there have been in all of the revolutions that we've had so far. You think about going back to the first industrial revolution, and people were panicking about machinery coming to take over their jobs. And there was this fear. And I think the same thing happened when we were coming now. People were worried about Arnold Schwarzenegger coming and destroying your life and taking away the jobs and things like that. And the idea behind the talk was to really dispel that myth if we could. And it was more looking at the synergies between what robotics, what AI could do better than what people could do, and what are those things that people do still that are better than what robots do. So the idea behind the talk was to really show that we actually need to be able to work together. So I talked about, the machines coming in and taking away the jobs. The first industrial revolution, what basically happened was that the people that were walking behind the oxen plowing the fields learned to drive a tractor and a combine harvester and things like that. So the reality was that they started incorporating the machinery into their lives. And what we're seeing now with AI is we're starting to incorporate that into our lives as well. So you think, for example, when you needed to find out information from an HR perspective, I need to find out, I've got a new dependent, what are the options available to me from a medical perspective? You would have to hunt down somebody in the HR department and get them to scratch around through their paperwork and give you the forms that needed to be filled in and explain all of these things to you. Today, you can go onto a chatbot which connects you through your phone to the HR department, and it has a whole knowledge base sitting behind it. And whatever questions it is that you ask it, it goes into the knowledge base, uses the machine learning to find the correct or the most likely positive response and give that to you. So what we're actually seeing now in terms of a working environment is that people aren't going into complex systems and trying to navigate their way through it. They're picking up their phone, talking to the phone and saying, I need to update my medical aid. How do I go about it? What do I need to do, et cetera, et cetera. So I think people are starting to become a lot more comfortable, and this whole RoboCop concept is not as scary as it initially people thought it was going to be. So that was really what the talk was about.
No, that's great, Ronnie. I mean, I think, we started out on our first edition of the show planning in 2017. So we're kind of almost like more than 2.5 years, almost 3 years now into the genesis of what we've been doing at AI Media. Now, when I started researching what we were going to be doing with the show in 2017, I was still picking up articles that were talking about the third AI winter, it's all hype. And now, almost 3 years on, it's not hype. it's absolute reality. And I think, companies like Oracle and others in your genre, the rate of innovation that you guys are going through to, get these products to market yourselves. I mean, that is a challenge for yourselves. I mean, I remember working with vendors, early 2000s, late 90s, where product releases were, once a year with a dot release, sort of halfway through the year. I mean, the level of innovation now we're all having to experience, it's phenomenal. Is that the same at Oracle, I'm assuming?
Absolutely. So we've gone from, as you say, once a year. In fact, I think our releases were probably every 18 months to 2 years before a major release came out. And then you would have your .1, .2, .3, possibly bug fixes and patches and things like that in between. What we're seeing now with our Fusion applications is the amount of innovation that is happening is just frightening. If I think last year alone, we brought out 1,200 new features in 1 year.
Wow.
And in order to be able to have people, take that in and be able to work their way through it, our release strategy is now every 3 months we bring out an update. So you are getting constant access to the latest and greatest innovation all of the time. You're not being left behind. So one of the things that we do in terms of our release strategy is that everybody moves more or less the same time. So we don't force our customers to move all at the same time. It's not a multi-tenant scenario. It's single, so you choose when you need to move. So for example, if one of the patches or updates is at your financial year end, for example, we allow you to delay that until it's more suitable for you. But the point is that you stay on the most current release all the time. So you constantly have access to all of the innovation that we bring. So as we add new functionality to chatbots, or what we call digital assistants, because it's more than just a chatbot, you're getting that coming to you within 3 months. You have got the latest and greatest. Whereas before, you would wait up to 2 years for any new innovation coming in. It would probably take you 6 months to a year to upgrade it. So you were always at least 2 to 3 years behind. Now, at worst, you are 3 months behind, at worst.
Well, I mean, look, it was great to have you talking at the show, Ronnie. I mean, Abrie, moving to you and perhaps getting a bit more hands-on with the traditional end of an event like ours, running a booth. Obviously, this year we've trialed a dedicated e-conference. So I think we're the first to market with one of the largest shows in Africa thus far. I think there's a few bigger ones coming after us. But how did you find running a virtual booth, the Oracle virtual booth? How did you find that?
I think it gave the opportunity for a lot of customers who didn't normally have travel allowances or they were remote to actually attend a conference from the comfort of their home. And what I see in the market now is where people are starting to challenge the norm. They say, why should I go to the office? And I think that put a lot of pressure back onto the organization to say, why can't we embrace the new technologies? Why can't we work from home? Why can't I work on my time? That whole work-life balance. And I think this is exactly what these conferences are doing. I think going forward, we'll see still a portion of the live event, but there will also be a section where people can just dial in and join remotely. And still get knowledge and get the experience that they're seeking for.
Yeah, I mean, our heads are already spinning after the event last week. I mean, we're in the on-demand phase now, so many more thousands of people through our community network will come and get to interact with brands like yours and the talks that Ronnie has done. We've got 40 hours of talks to go through. So it's actually become a learning archive. And I think you've hit the nail on the head. I think what we've found as an event organizer and as a community builder is actually this could be a very viable thing to have alongside a face-to-face event, particularly for the international companies. I think we had, just between the French, Dutch, and Swiss embassies, they had 32 companies at the show. And to have 32 companies fly all the way to Cape Town, that probably wouldn't have happened. Most of them were very small startup companies. So I think there's definitely going to be a place for it. We just need to work out how these two worlds live alongside each other.
I think it's very much the same as the concept that I was talking about of having robotics and people and deciding which works better for some and which works better for others. And I think you're going to probably see, you're still going to have the traditional conferences where people like to go and meet and have a drink in the bar afterwards and network, which I think possibly you didn't. I think possibly it was still a bit new for some people, this whole concept of being able to network remotely, if you like. But I think as people get used to it, it will become better. But I think there's still a place for the live events where people can actually get to meet and have a chat and have a get together as well. So
yeah, look, I always think that
it's really a way of finding which works.
Yeah, I think the motivation.
It'll be a combination.
So Abrie, do you want to carry on?
I think it's going to be a combination going forward, and I think it will give a lot of organizers like yourself a lot more exposure globally, because now you're not linked to time frames, travel. So your event can go from an Africa event to a global event, and just exposure, because we have world-class speakers at our events, and just getting participants all across the world.
Well, look, just to wrap up, guys, I think the motivator for people to go to face-to-face events is still going to be there. I think the motivator originally was it's a chance to get away from work. And now I think the motivator is going to be a chance to get away from home. So, well, it just leads me to say, guys...
Which is the most important one.
Well, I don't know. I think right now most people would like to get away from home. We're all being cooped up for 6 or so months now. But it just leads me to say, guys, a very sincere thank you to Oracle, not only for putting up a quality speaker like Ronnie and the commitment that you made, but also the sponsorship. It was great to have you on board this year in very different circumstances, obviously. But I want to use this as an opportunity to say thank you. And Abrie, Ronnie, many thanks for joining us today on AI TV.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Nick.